I've made a little bit of progress on this electric motor off the Wolf tool post grinder. I got the brushes out to come out quite easily, and the brushes are in very good condition. Certainly plenty left on them, nothing at all to worry about there. I did get some new bearings. I fitted the new bearing onto that end of the armature. That's a sealed bearing. The other one was just plain open bearing. The way I got that bearing off was I crushed it in the vise and cracked out that track carefully. Took that off. Then I used a little die grinder and I just ground away, hit that bearing track until it cracked itself, and then it just slides off. It's quite a common way of doing them. In the motor trade we do that all the time. I didn't have a pull on, I didn't want to start hammering and chiseling on things, so that's how I got it off. In the other one, just tapped on with a nice tight fitting socket, hammering on that part of the bearing there, not the outer part. So that bit is back together. The brush gear end bearing, which is that one, which is a self-aligning bearing, I managed to get one, no problem at all. It was just the cost. It was quite an expensive bearing, Swedish bearing, fag bearing, so it should be quite a decent one. I'm going to put that into the casing now and try and get the armature back in. This bearing's not sealed, so I'm going to put some grease in it. This is the grease I'm going to use. As a friend of mine, he's one of the, I think he's the biggest agent in the country for Royal Purple, and he's given us some of this grease to try. As you can see, it's purple. Got a real high spec on it. I also want to do my bearings on the milling machine, so I'll be using this. Anyway, that's a little plug for Royal Purple. So we need to put some oil into, need to put some grease into the bearing. Make sure you get it pushed down into the tracks all the way around. You don't just smear a little bit on, you've got to get it, do it from one side, and when the grease comes out the other side, you know you've got plenty in. This does feel nice and greasy, but there again it won't do being as well as grease. You keep pushing it through, and eventually it will. You can see it's starting to come through the other side there. You don't want to overload it, but you want plenty of grease in there. It's nice and sticky and lovely, and that feels nice. So you can see it's self-aligning. Right, I'm very happy with that. Of course, I could have put some gloves on, couldn't I? But it wouldn't have been the same then, would it? Right. Well, I'm going to install this bearing now, and I've got a socket that is slightly smaller than that part of the bearing. Actually fits into the hole quite nicely, so I'm going to use that just to tap the bearing in. It shouldn't be that tight. You could warm this a little bit, but I think it'll just tap in. It goes in either way around. It hasn't got a thrust side to it. We'll slide that into there, get it lined up nice and straight. Come on, John. That looks good. And we'll just gently tap it in. That's it home, I think. Yeah, you can hear it change screw once it gets down to the bottom. Right, so that's in there. And still turns round quite nicely. Into there was this little leather type seal. I'll put a little bit of grease on that, just to keep it nice and supple. Right, a little bit of grease on there, and that slides into there. Then there was a bearing cover. Which went onto there like a shroud. That goes in there as well. And those two little, look at that bastard. Two little screws held it in place. We'll put that into there and put the two little screws in. You can see it in there, so that's it in the bottom. That's a little bearing cover plate. Two screws to go into there. I'm just going to use a little bit of grease in the slot head of the screw just to hold it under the screwdriver. Just so I can get it started in there like that. That's splendid. Right, so that's a bearing and its little seal all nicely in place. So it does move, it's got movement to line it, so it lines itself up. A little bit more lubricant in there won't do any harm at all. Right, now this part armature, and reassemble the bearing onto there. Just going to go to the vise and give it a bit tap on the vise. Right, that's that bearing fully home. Feels really nice. Now I can put this back into the motor, put it back together. Drop that down there and it should nicely go into that bearing. What I may do is put a little socket underneath here just to support that bit and just gently tap the armature down through it. So it's an exploratory. Yeah, it needs supporting on the end of there before it gets knocked in. Just going to use the end, the inner part of the wool bearing. Right, that went on quite nicely, and it feels nice, and it feels really nice. Take some of that excess grease out of there before finish assembling it. We need the 4 screws for the front now. I see I'm not restoring this, I'm just putting it back together so it's in good working condition, because I will be going to use it. Like any casing, you always tighten down nice and evenly, a little bit each one at a time. Still nice and free. There was a shim under that bearing on the end of the armature. I've just put it back the way it was. Right in here there was a little spacer piece like that, and there was a little shim, and there was a little drive pin, a little pin that went in. That went into there. There, you bastard, you. That's it. Then we'll have the actual part that the belt runs on. It's actually got a little mark on there. It's been stood that long, not moving. I can run the motor up and polish that off quite nicely. Right, so that went onto there like that. And there was a yeah, and the wheel pulley just drops on like that. And there was that little nut to hold it. These are interesting screwdrivers. I think they're called turn screws. I buy them at a car boot sale whenever I sort of see them. That old bits of joiners gear. That's a lovely quality steel blade, and you can file them to fit whatever sort of screw you want. Certainly well worth picking up. Got a name on that one. Charles Taylor Sheffield Tools. Proper bit of English gear. Another one there, bigger one. Right, on the other end of the motor, there was a little this was screwed into there. I should be working the bench really, not chasing this bastard thing around the bench like this one. Right, so that motor, it feels not stiff, but it's not completely free. I'm sure it'll be alright. Put the brushes in next, and then there's some wiring to do. I need a bit of new flex for it, but it's not fall off running. It's going together quite nicely. I'm quite enjoying doing it. Nice doing something for myself for a change. I'm just going to run a little bit of sandpaper, or a bit of, will be sandpaper, on the brushes just to make them a little bit looser in the holder. Right, that's better. That's better. Simply drops into there like that, and there's a little cap that goes on the end, and the spring keeps the brush in contact with the commutator. Come on, bastard features. Come on. the spring's getting, it's working itself a little bit. Right, the second I turned the camera off, they went straight in. No, they didn't. Oh, that bastard's still not going straight in. Here it is. Right, so we've now got brushes in there as well. It's getting near to running this. That's a really nice old switch, twin pole switch. That'll be Bakelite. That's a bit of proper gear. Then you have fantastic plastic here. Goes in like that. And the two wires go in like that. That wasn't very forthcoming to get out, I remember it now. I think I should have put that in before I put the armature in. Bastard. Right, I cheated a little bit and fired a little bit of that casing off just to get the switch to drop in. That's how much difference it made. The switch should have went in before the armature went in, but it didn't, so only now really is some power onto here on the earth and the motor should run. I'll get a decent 3-core flex and it's looking not too bad at all. Sounds a lot better than it did.